Hi, it's Colin from the Australian Festival of Chamber Music. At the height of dry tropical season, Cairns reveals a completely different side to itself. Blue skies, brighter skies, and calm, cooler nights. But what should a visitor look out for in Cairns in late July? We're going to speak to Matt from Designer Garden, who's going to tell us all about it. Today we're speaking with Matt, owner of Designer Garden here in Cairns. And we're going to explore what makes late July such a special time to visit Cairns. Hi Matt.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for doing the interview today.
That's okay.
It's a pleasure to meet you. So Matt, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about your qualifications as well.
Oh yeah, so I've lived in Cairns for 20 years, been very fortunate to live here. I'm a registered horticulturalist with the Australian Institute of Horticulture. And I've had Designer Garden for almost 20 years now as well in Cairns.
Fantastic. To begin, how would you describe the typical weather patterns in Cairns in July?
Winter in Cairns is beautiful. It's definitely the best time of year. It's a lot cooler, obviously, but it's not too cool. It only has, it gets down to 14 degrees at night and 27 degrees in the daytime. So it's absolutely wonderful time to be here. One of the best points about it is the clarity of the air is very clear. The mountains are very clear. We don't get that in Cairns coming because the air is normally quite thick with the humidity. So in the winter we get really clear, pristine days.
Amazing. How does tropical horticulture differ from garden destinations further south, say in Melbourne or Sydney?
Oh yes, so of course we live in the tropics, so we can have all the tropical plants. The plants that you would get indoors in those climates, then you can have outdoors here in Cairns.
How do native tropical species respond to July's dry conditions?
Well, winter is a time when things are a lot more quieter. There's a lot more. Things are still growing, but at a much slower pace. It's definitely things. Animals are not hibernating, so there is still movement. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a really calm. The weather's calm, the climate's nice, and things are plodding along nicely.
And what plants are typically at their peak or flowering in late July?
Oh, there's plenty of flowers about, especially in the winter. Spring is obviously when things start kicking up. But in the winter, in the tropics, we do get the vines. A lot of the vines are out in flower. And also a little bit further out of Cairns, you'll see the bougainvilleas are all out in flower in the winter, and the frangipanis start up as well.
And are orchids, gingers or heliconias likely to be flowering during this time?
A lot of gingers, heliconias will flower all year round. So,
right.
So
okay.
even in the winter, they still bearing flowers, yeah.
And are there signature dry season blooms that visitors shouldn't miss?
Yeah, definitely the vines. Martin Munro Park is one of the places that you're the best for tropical vines.
Fantastic. Just across the road from CPAC.
Yeah, that's right.
Very convenient for the Australian Festival of Chamber Music patrons. Are there particular striking colour displays in those gardens at that time? Yeah,
very fortunate to have like a load of different colours in the vines in that park. There is the flame of the forest, which is red, and then there's a jade vine, which is a purple blue. Mm-hmm. Which also the jade vine can have a red flower too, and then there's a lot of oranges and stuff in a lot of vines and stuff there as well. So yeah,
plenty to see, plenty of colour,
absolutely beautiful,
really attractive. So moving on to wildlife and ecological activity, does the dry season change how visible certain birds, butterflies, other wildlife are?
Yeah, it is a quiet time, like everywhere, winter, but it's the best time to see our reptiles in Cairns and far north Queensland. The crocodiles, for one, are the ones that you will see on the banks of rivers up in north and south of here, really. Mm-hmm. The Daintree, Port Douglas. If you're driving by the rivers at low tide, you're likely to see a crocodile. So, and there's all other reptiles that you'll see as well. So basking out in the sunshine during a balmy winter's day. Then. Absolutely. So, and what about insect activity? What sort of insects are about that time of year? The insects are also quiet. There's a lot of work with the insects underground, right. And this is where they're eating the roots and stuff and getting ready to start the year. And what plants have a particularly good scent at that time of year? Where would you go if you want to smell some beautiful plants? Well, yeah, hopefully the vines will give you some smell. And then there is definitely smells around the gardens, the botanic gardens. If you walk around there in the winter, the smells that you would get will be from the gingers, the heliconias. They really have their foliage, actually, not their flowers, their foliage. You'll be able to smell the scents of their foliage.
So instead of like flowers, we're smelling sort of the foliage and the
Absolutely,
greens of
yeah.
it all. Okay.
Absolutely.
Something to look out for then.
Yeah, definitely.
And early mornings or evenings particularly good?
Yeah, both are absolutely brilliant times of the day. The afternoon, you'll have beautiful sunsets in Cairns. There'll be less wind in the mornings, especially in the tablelands. We have fog, which is very rare for us to have that, especially here in the tropics here. So it's a really beautiful time as well. The mornings are
fantastic. So get out in the morning and get a big bush up your nose of all the foliage and some of the flowers. Okay. And from a visual and photographic perspective, are early mornings pretty good to go and take those photos?
Yeah, I would say both are exactly the same. It doesn't get freezing here, so our temperatures are nice, 12 degrees that it gets down to in Cairns. So we do, but it's just that crisp air for us. For us is what we don't see very often. So that morning, the crisp air morning is rare for us to see that. So it's something very special.
A great time to come to Cairns and take some photos and really snap things at their most pristine and sort of crystal clear.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. So are there indigenous plant uses or bush food species that visitors can learn about while they're here?
Yeah, there definitely is, and a good place to see them, I would say, is the Botanic Gardens, the Cairns Botanic Gardens. They have a good amount of information on the native bush tucker foods here. And also, if you're heading out a little bit further afield to Mosman Gorge, they've got a visitor centre, and also throughout their national park, there's a lot of information about the native stuff.
And what's good in Cairns Botanic Gardens? What should people look out for?
Oh, the Cairns Botanic Garden is an absolutely wonderful place for those who haven't visited before. It's tropical. There is flowers out there. Heliconia gingers should be still out there. There is a shade house with the orchids, with a phenomenal amount of orchids and so much tropical plants there. It's just
lots to see.
Absolutely wonderful.
So much to see. Okay, and are there any smaller private or specialist tropical gardens that people can go and explore?
There are the nurseries. There's Limberlost Nurseries, which is just in Cairns, which has a cafe, and it's a really good amount of tropical plants. There are a few other nurseries too that are definitely worth visiting. There's a Chinese Friendship Gardens here which is very close to the Botanic Gardens. Yeah, with the loads of tropical plants.
Are there nearby rainforest or hinterland gardens that people should plan to add on to their visit?
Yeah, definitely. Tablelands has a whole new amount of gardens. Absolutely wonderful place. It's a little bit cooler than Cairns, so it doesn't have the humidity, so it can have different plants. Special places, I would say, is Paranella Park for their gardens. That's a famous one. There is Yungaburra, which has loads of flowering plants, and it's a very pretty town. Yeah. There's the Skywalk.
Mamu Skywalk.
The Mamu Skywalk, which is in amongst the rainforest. Yeah. There's Lake Isham. There's so many places.
And there's some tea plantations.
Yeah, the tea plantations too. Yeah, and it's a good place to see the tree kangaroo there.
Tree kangaroo, fantastic. Something to look out for there then. So if you were designing a 2-day garden-focused itinerary in Cairns in July, what would you recommend?
All right, so definitely obviously the Martin Munro Park, the Botanic Gardens is one. If you get a chance to go to a nursery, please have a look around one of our nurseries. That's one day, and then the next day, if you could go around the tablelands, it's a good day. It's a good long 8-hour day, but you could definitely see 3 places.
So you get the benefits of all the tropics and all the tropical elements here in Cairns, but go up to the tablelands, you've got a whole new world to explore.
Absolutely, and the weather's still perfect throughout those places.
Not cold, just
not at
crisp
all, no.
instead.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, in the mornings, but in the daytime, 26, 27 degrees, it's wonderful.
And if you had to choose 1 or 2 must-see plants in July, what would those plants be? Okay,
so July, the vines are going to be spectacular. So definitely worth going under the vine walkway.
Yeah.
seeing all the different species.
And that's Martin Monroe Park.
That's Martin Monroe Park.
Just across the road from CPAC.
Yep. And then I would say the Botanic Gardens to see what's the flavour of the month there.
So we're from the Australian Festival of Chamber Music. We're interested in a little bit in how gardens and music go together, particularly sort of that classical music. Can you talk about your experience in that sense?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I often go to some of my clients' places, and there's classical music playing, and there's a really strong relationship between the music and the gardens, especially it's the way that the gardens have been planted and managed to have a almost like an amphitheatre around. It just cushions the music around the garden. Right. So even without surround sounds, it just travels through the garden in such a way that you can.
So how would you design a garden to make a natural sort of amphitheatre?
Well, it's all about the layering of the plants, and to be able to contain the music, to be able to send the music around the garden in such a way.
Any particular materials or plants that would work well, or that you should avoid?
You just obviously sound travels around. So you just have to keep the flow going instead of having to try to block. So, like a lot of people try to block the sound, obviously, for different sounds that you're not interested in. But if you're trying to encourage the sound, that's the exciting thing. Right. Is you can encourage the sound to go around the garden even without the help of surround sounds.
So you just bellow it out into the garden, let it go around, and
if it can follow its own track, yeah.
So thanks, Matt, for talking to us today. It's great to hear how Cairns and Gardens and the Australian Festival of Chamber Music sort of all go together one in one. So we're going to give you 2 tickets to one of the concerts. So look out for Matt and the crowd when you visit us in July. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, while late July might be dry season, it's far from dormant, especially rewarding those who look closely. It's also the most comfortable time of year to experience the tropics. So come here for the Australian Festival of Chamber Music, explore the fantastic world-class music, but also explore these beautiful gardens.